Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we are going to cover some of the decks that did well at the qualifier weekend for Historic Best of 3. So usually what I do is I like to kind of cap the going before the event. We cover all the decks that seem good, have high win rates going in, and then I always like to cap what people actually got, 7 wins on day 2 qualified for the Arena Championship with. I like to kind of do it as a cap all. So this will be a quick video. We're going to look at 3 decks today and then have them tagged to various folks. 2 very innovative decks that found a way to kind of get ahead of the Boros decks, which is quite important. I said going in, whoever figured out the combo deck to kind of get under Boros was going to do well, and it seems like some folks have. There was also the Arena Championship itself, which was historic this weekend. There's 32 players, so with those formats, they're a little bit more inbred in the sense that it's more metagamed. It was like 18 out of the 32 decks are Boros Energy. Then like the rest were basically Jeskai Control. There's 2 Yawgmoth decks. So it was pretty much mirrors all day. So Boros Energy won, but 18 out of 32, you'd assume odds are Boros Energy would probably do fairly well in that event. So we're going to look at the decks here. We're going to do quick, and then we'll be back for the rest of the week for kind of regular cadence stuff. Some folks have been asking. I did go to my RCQ yesterday. I lost in the top. I lost my winning in for top 8. It was Modern Horizons 3 sealed and then top 8 draft. I had probably one of the worst pools I could imagine. The fact that I even won games. $85 entry. The most expensive card I got was $3 in my prize pool. I got all the like smugglers lands and like all those on color lands, like the Arena Glory style lands. Nothing really playable. No Eldrazi, nothing like that. But almost made it to top 8, but kind of bummed still in the end. But enough of me. Let's look at the decks and the folks that did have great weekends. And we're going to start off with Mavignon on Twitter. They got 7 wins. And we were playing Shifting Woodlands and Best of 1. It did really well. And they found the Best of 3 variant. So a lot of things happening here. This is the opposite of a mono red curve. It is... So kind of the core of the deck is built around Shifting Woodlands. So there's a couple different avenues. They can become a copy of any permanent in your graveyard. So you can go with the Omniscience line, which we were doing in Best of 1. With Best of 1, you're playing kind of the show and tell package, where you'd go to Masterminds, go to your sideboard, and kind of win like that. That version required you to play kind of bad cards, like in Fae of Wishes, stuff like that don't actually advance your game plan. But it also took up sideboard slots, which this one doesn't. So you could do the Omniscience, and then you just start casting big things. Elish Norn sweeps the Boros deck, just makes it so they really can't play creatures. One thing to note, if you bought past Historic Anthologies, you get the Praetors already. But if you just import the deck sometimes, it will try to go to the special guest versions. So make sure you don't accidentally craft these instead. It almost made me try to waste 2 mythics. One in the main, one in the sideboard. So keep in mind that. You have Atraxa. So obviously Atraxa ETB from the Omniscience is very strong, but you can also just have like Woodlands be a 7/7 flying vigilance death touch lifelinker that just attacks in for that turn, which is strong on its own. There's the God Pharaoh's gift package, which is an alternative, a way to kind of go about it. So you can have Woodlands become a copy of God Pharaoh's. Then at the beginning of your combat, you exile a creature card from your graveyard. If you do, you create a token copy. And then it gets haste on the turn, which is very strong because you could just like haste out an Atraxa, Elish Norn, Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger, Ulamog the Defiler. Notably, to get the Annihilator effect, you have to cast it, so you have to do it on the Omniscience side, but it'd still just be a big creature at times. Like, I guess with Woodlands, it's not as useful. It's more of the Omniscience draw. You also have Emrakul, the World Anew. This is another card that's a cast trigger, so something just to be mindful of. So you kind of got the Eldrazi package in there. Now, the enablers of the deck. Artillery Enthusiast. So you basically, it enters the battlefield, you discard a card. If you do, you seek a card with mana value equal to that mana's card's value. You could also discard a land and get a land. So lands have a mana value 0. And then it just helps you kind of churn through your deck, kind of find your effects. Looting in here just lets you draw a discard, set up your draws. You have the Haywire Might. Incidental artifact, enchantment hate, so this can deal with goblin bombardment, stuff like that. Even just life gain's useful. This is reasonable because it's an artifact and a creature, so it's 2 types for Shifting Woodlands for Delirium. Smuggler's Surprise is another cool one. So with Artillery Enthusiast, you could discard like Faithless Looting and find the surprise. Surprise is another way to just cheat into play cards. So it's if they're attacking your graveyard, you can just go this route here. Traverse the Uvenwald as a way to tutor for effects, hit lands early, but then also tutor for like any of your effects that you need. Vampire's Vengeance as a sweeper choice for the deck, instant speed that can hit all your opponents like Boros stuff. Malevolent Rumblings as a way to basically dig, fill your graveyard, ramp up. So just a lot of utility with this card. Cathartic Pyre is something I was trying out in the best of one. Actually, in Boros, I was playing Boros Control of Flage. I was trying this out there, but this was a reasonable card because it's both removal and it can be looting as well. So it's got the flexibility that you want. And 3 damage deals with most of the threats at a Boros anyways. Going to the sideboard, we have Alpine Moon for the Lotus Field decks. So this will, you could just name Lotus Field. This, incidentally, if you run into Mono Green Devotion, you could also name Nykthos. More Smuggler's Surprise, so if they're attacking the graveyard, Rest in Peace, stuff like that, Surgicals, you can just Smuggler's Surprise from your hand. Stone of Erich versus the like Yogg decks, stuff like that. Vexing Bauble's an interesting one. Whenever a player casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. So this would be for like Persist combo in the mirror. Now, notably, this would shut off your Omniscience itself. So something to just be mindful in that respect. More Haywire Mites for Artifact Enchantment Hate, Pithing Needles, activated abilities. You could also just shift, if they bring in a lot of Graveyard Hate, you just bring the Fair Plan of Reflections to help you ramp. More Vampire's Vengeance, more Elesh Norn. So you just kind of tutor your deck as needed in that respect. So shout out to Mavignon. That's a really sweet deck. There's also L3OL3, just hard to pronounce from Twitter, but similar idea with this deck here. So they got 6 wins, so just a win short, but still a hell of a run, going 13-1. Very similar package, less on the 1-drops, so you just have looting and traverse. This one's also on the Satyr Wayfinder, single copy of Archdruids to help you. This card's pretty flexible. In a pinch, it can just find you your woodlands at instant speed. Be fight spell, artifact enchantment hate, so it's got a lot of flexibility in it. It does have a mana cost requirement. Fable of the Mirror Breaker main board just helps you kind of ramp in. Inferno Titan plays really nicely with like God Pharaoh's Gift, just ping off a bunch of creatures out of your opponent's deck. This is also much easier to cast in a fair game, I would say, comparing it to something like Elesh Norn, which gets the value of it being cheated in, but it's kind of the immediate like board effect where this can be easier cast for more of a fair game. Your God Pharaoh's Gift, this one's on a full 4 of. Ulamog, free Ulamog the Defilers, no Emrakul in this particular build. The one thing that stood out to me was 3 Besejus, which seems like a lot, given that the deck is on only 21 lands, and then 3 of them being Besejus. I could see some potential feel bads where this land just, you have to legendary rule yourself. That was the only thing that I kind of noticed in that respect. Then the sideboard, Discharge for the more aggressive decks, Haywire Mites, Pithing Needles for activated abilities, Flutes, same idea. Licensors for Graveyard Hate, Brotherhood's End as a sweeper. Notably, this hits a Johnny as well if it's flipped. Minskin for control matchups. Nissa, probably similar, and just like the grindier matchups, this can blow up a lot of hate, put a lot of pressure in other regards. And Titan of Industry, just a lot of flexible modes with that. I will say, I do like the Haywire Mite in the main. It providing 2 types and then just flexibility and life gain seems like a pretty sweet addition to the deck. So this is kind of like the other idea. So for context, just to show, like, this is the deck that a lot of people, like I shared, and a lot of people did well in the best of 1 qualifier. So this version here, it's very similar. You're using Scrapwood Mutt as the artifact creature in this case. Enters the battlefield, draw discard. So it kind of helps you loot away your Omniscience. The line with this one here in best of 1 is you set up your draw, then you go Fae of Wishes into your sideboard. You get Mastermind's Acquisition. Your Mastermind's Acquisition gets the Mastermind's Acquisition. That Mastermind's Acquisition gets Scholar of Ages. Scholar of Ages comes to play, but returns to your hand the 2 Mastermind's Acquisitions in your graveyard. Mastermind's Acquisition gets Approach the Second Sun, cast Approach the Second Sun, then you Masterminds for the Approach the Second Sun in your library, cast Approach the Second Sun for your second cast, win the game at that point there. So that's kind of the line with that deck. So similar kind of idea. This one's much more all in on the graveyard. So it gets a little worse in that regard. You're also playing like effectively worse spells. But this is kind of the idea here. It's good in best of one. It's a little soft to turn 3 combo because it's usually like a turn 4 or 5 combo. But it's quite consistent in terms of what it's doing. And the last deck, MTG Nosferatu. I'm going to show it. So it's Boros Energy. So the one thing from the weekend, a lot of the Boros Energy decks were Jangantha or like Flage versions of the deck. I want to show this one because there's some interesting choices in terms of the deck, and it paid off with the 7 wins. So right off the bat, no Amped Raptor. In a field where you're expecting a lot of Sun Cleanser's main, it loses a lot of its utility in that respect. This version's also playing Portable Hole main over the Static Prison. Again, just when you're expecting a lot of Sun Cleansers, this card gets worse, but still kind of the same 1-drop package otherwise. 1 Sun Cleanser main, full Goblin Bombardment, Impetuous Lootmonger to kind of steal your opponent's cards come in. But the big thing is usually in these Flage versions, you see Fable the Mirror Breaker. This version is opting to go with Seasoned Pyromancer instead. This card provides, like when you're Hellbent, so it provides card selection early in terms of looting, and then late game just refills your hand. Fable's nice because it does kind of filter your draws, but it doesn't provide card advantage. It provides card selection as well. Like Fable's nice with Impetuous Lootmonger, but you do have a number of legendaries in the deck right now. But you have Flages, full 4 set. You have Witch Enchanter as a land that can also blow up artifacts and enchantments. Good in the mirror to hit Goblin Bombardment, or like Static Prisons, Portable Holes, stuff of that nature. You have full Prismatic Vistas to give you more fuel for the Flage, as well as Arena of Glory to haste it out. This version, there's a lot of mythics I'm missing. So we're trying to be cautious of the mythics. And then in the sideboard, Portable Holes, Surgical Extractions for a combo. Thraben Charm's a card that's been picking up a bit. Really good in best of one version as well, because it's a removal spell. It destroys an enchantment, so it could destroy Goblin Bombardment, or it can exile any number of cards from target player's graveyard. So you usually just choose all of them and get rid of that way. Interesting card, an Alchemy card, Specialize. So probably the thematic thing that upsets people the most about Alchemy. Carlock, 2 mana, 2/2, first strike. You can specialize this. So how Specialize works is you discard a card. So in this case, you pay 6 mana, discard a card, and then it has to share either a color or a basic land type, and then it transforms. So if you discard a mountain or a red card, it could become Carlock Tiefling Berserker 4/4. You could also specialize from the graveyard with this particular card. That's an additional thing. So I guess this comes in against the heavier removal decks, since you just get it back from your graveyard. 6 mana is a lot, I would say. When you do it as a red card, this creature can't block. When it's specialized from any zone, target creature and opponent control can't block this turn. You do the white one. When it specializes from any zone, you create a 2/2 knight, and creatures you control get +1/1 in haste. So just kind of a Anthem effect. Got the Disruptor Flutes, 3 Tajik. This card's really strong. So against the heavy removal decks, Divine Purge decks, stuff of that nature, Wrath the Sky decks. So whenever it attacks, so at the beginning of your combat, you put a counter on Tajik, and then it conjures a creature into play. So it's just like a bunch of Boros creatures. So you go up the curve. So Boros Recruit is a 1/1 first strike, Swiftblade Vindicator, Sky Knight Legionnaire, Spark Trooper, Aurelia. So you kind of go up to 5 as the top end, and then some prismatic endings in the sideboard as well. This card I'm a little whatever on, but the Tajiks seem reasonable, and it's been included in a number of sideboards in the Grindier matchups. Those are 3 decks from the weekend that did well that I came across, so I just want to share with folks. Let me know what your thoughts of Historic are in general. There is a lot of Boros Energy. If you do think a nerf or a ban should happen, which card do you think should be hit? If so, thanks for watching, everyone. We'll be back later in the week with more metagame breakdowns, and Bloomburrow can't come quick enough. Thanks for watching.